Welcome to the Science of Tree Felling series. In this video, we're going to be talking about reading the stump. And reading the stump is just something that we can perform after every fell that we do, as well as when we're out in the wild, observing how other people cut stumps and thinking about how it went. Again, if you watched all the previous videos, you are aware of what a good cut stump, a proper educated cut stump will look like. And now I'll show you maybe what to watch out for and how to read accurately what somebody else has done, even if it's after the case. Here is a cut stump that I've come across, and although the tree is no longer here, we can see some things that indicate maybe the level of knowledge or skill that the previous sawyer had who did the removal. We'll take a look first here at their face cut. Their face cut is slightly pitched back towards the stump. Really no reason for that given the terrain. And their face width and the front of their hinge that they created is approximately the right diameter. So starting to look pretty good. Now the face notch itself is missing and the rest of the log, so I don't know how big of an angle they were able to cut. But they weren't exactly flat when they made that bottom cut. So that's already indicating to me that perhaps they were having some struggles in some fashion. You'll see some of that a little bit later as well. I'm just going to rotate down here so that you can see and observe that they did not have a clean apex when they made this face cut. Their bottom cut went way too far, and that their top cut did not meet cleanly, which means that the front of their hinge was not well defined. They couldn't see it very well. Additionally, there is some marking in an arced form pretty heavily onto the stump. So maybe a plunge cut or a small bar was being used to drop this tree. Also, it would appear to me that maybe it was operating at a lower speed than it should have just based on the markings. So a small bar or a dull bar or one that's not operating at the appropriate speed may have been plunged and or pressed into this wood. Now there's some different arcs back here that would indicate not only have they plunged in here, but there was another cut coming in at this angle as well. And then there's this drop down in here, which would indicate that while they were making their back cut, maybe their tool that they were using was dull or damaged or not cutting straight. For the most part, their back cut is slightly elevated but flat to the terrain. So they have the right angle here, but where they really missed the mark is questionable what that is or how that got to be, but how much hinge they have left. And again, I'll remind you that the hinge is the most important part of the felling plan because it keeps the tree attached to the stump and allows us control and to overcome gravity, or at least control and manipulate gravity. This little bit right here in front of my finger is all that was ever of the hinge, because again, they didn't have a clean apex. So on this side, they had severed completely through their hinge, worked it around, and that's all the hinge that they had left. And based on looking at this stump, I'm hoping that it went in the right direction. We won't know for sure because the tree has been removed, but it is much more likely and possible that they lost control of this tree and that it didn't end up going in the direction that they intended. I would not consider this to be a good-looking stump from a tree feller who had a well-maintained tool and knew what they were doing. Perhaps some more skill and knowledge would be to their benefit so that they can make better, more predictable stump cuts and felling. So if I ever find this person, I'm going to suggest him to watch these videos. Holy moly, what happened to this stump? Well, this was a fecon unit. This is what stumps look like when they've been ground down as opposed to cut down. Okay, let's take a look at this stump. We can see that the face of this stump is cut flat we remain with the removed section of the face notch. They used an open face cut, around 60 degrees of angle or so. They left a good looking hinge here, about 10%, perfectly parallel all the way across. And their back cut, you can see, if this picks up on the camera, which I hope it does, you'll see these arcing marks here, which means that they bore cut in. They brought the saw up, they were able to set the back side of their hinge, and they left this little release cut at that back corner. Cut all this other material out. It looks like they may have driven a wedge by the discoloration here into the back. So with this, it looks like they made a nice face. They left a well-adjusted hinge. They plunged cut to remove any of the material in the middle. They made a nice release cut slightly below. Their back cut is elevated off their face cut. Looks here that they had to overcome some obstacles and had to push through the canopy of these two aspens to get down on the ground. And where did it land? Here's where the tree landed compared to where their face is facing. I would say they did a pretty gosh darn good job of hitting their target, pushing through that canopy, and felling this tree nicely. Which brings me to my conclusion that we can all learn something from every stump that we fell and other people's stumps as well. There's always some knowledge that we can gain from just stopping and observing our behavior and behaviors of others. And through that observation, we can all become better sawyers. And with that, thanks for listening. See you next time. Thank you for watching the Science of Tree Felling series. My hope is that you find these videos educational and that you learn to be a better, safer tree feller. If you know others who may benefit from this series, share the link, like the video, and subscribe to this channel. Keep watching for even more tree felling knowledge. See you next time.